Have you ever wanted your own TV show? Have you dreamed of showcasing your talent for the world to see? Well, now you can. Have your own TV show. You can have your own 30-minute show. Not only will you be seen in the Detroit area, but you can be viewed worldwide. Be seen on WHPR Detroit Live, Comcast Cable Channel 91, on the web at TV33WHPR.com, with the TV33 app, on Roku, Google TV, Apple TV, and on Amazon Fire TV. Act now. Time slots are limited. Sign up today and get a free replay with the purchase of your time slot. For more information, call 313-868-6612. Visit our studios and receive a free TV interview to promote your business, church, or organization by appointment only.
Watch Anthony Adams. We Detroit. We deserve better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We Detroit. We deserve better.
Good morning, Detroit. My name is Anthony Adams of the We Detroit, We Deserve Better show, a program where I bring and speak about topics of interest to me and hopefully of topics of interest to you. Today, I am extremely excited because I have a special guest with me today. This special guest is no more than Lynn Marine Adams, my law partner and my wife. A very established probate attorney here in the city of Detroit. And we're going to talk about topics of interest for estate planning, how we really work to protect our senior citizens, how you work to protect your assets, and just sort of a couple things that we want to talk about. So good morning, Ms. Adams. How are you?
Good morning. I haven't seen you in a while.
So Lynn, Lynn is the partner in the law firm of Marine Adams Law PC, headquartered in Renaissance Center, 400 Renaissance Center, 26th floor. She's been a practicing probate attorney for more than
2 years.
More than 2 years, okay.
29.
29 years, and she is my law partner, as I said previously. So Lynn, why don't you kind of give us a little background about who you are, where you came from, kind of your Detroit story.
Well, I was born and raised here in Detroit. I initially lived on Ohio off of Joy Road, and then we moved over on Steele off of Joy till I was probably around 8 years old. And then we moved further west off of 6 Mile near Southfield. I am a child of parochial schools. My mother was an educator, retired educator for DPS, but she sent us to Catholic schools, a little bit probably because I was born and raised Catholic, but in addition to that, she liked the discipline of the Catholic schools.
Okay.
My parents divorced when I was younger, probably around 8 or 9, and so we were raised, primarily by our mother, my brother, and I. I attended Bishop Borges High School, later becoming a great Wolverine. Go Blue. I attended the University of Michigan, where I pledged Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority.
AKA?
Beta Eta,
Okay.
yay. And then I went on to Ohio State for law school. But let's be clear, I'm still a Wolverine, as
All
you
right.
know.
We won't hold that
I believe that although we didn't quite get there, we did make the Elite Eight. I mean, let me just say, Michigan was the last Big Ten team.
Yes.
And then when I got out of law school, I clerked for a judge for a year, and then I went into private practice, where I primarily, for the last 29 years, have done probate law, estate planning, and dealing a lot with, also in the component of that is dealing a lot with people with mental health issues as well.
So explain to me kind of what actually is probate law. Why is probate law important for our senior citizens or any person? What is probate law? How do you practice probate law? Just kind of give us an understanding as to what your day looks like.
It varies. Initially when I started practicing years ago, I did a lot of GAL assigned work
And
where
what's a GAL for our
guardian
listeners?
guardian ad litem, where someone would come down to the court, file a petition for guardianship and conservatorship, because they were in the eyes of the person that was filing the petition, unable to handle their financial affairs or make medical decisions. But let's be clear, sometimes children need conservators too, because they may get lawsuit settlements, they may get insurance, they may be the beneficiary of an insurance policy. And if you're under the age of 18, by law, you're recognized as not being able to handle your finances. So if you get over like, 5,000, typically $10,000, the requirement is to open up a conservatorship or a protective order.
So what is the difference between a guardianship and a conservatorship?
A guardianship, you are making decisions about a person. You're making medical decisions. You're assisting. You're making placement decisions. Conservatorship, you're in charge of finances. So you are making financial decisions. You're able to become payee of their pension benefits. With guardianships too, you can become. Oftentimes you can become payee of their Social Security benefits to assist the individual in making, to assist them into making certain that their bills are paid, their needs are taken care of.
So what happens in the situation where a person, let's say, die? Well, let me back up. How important it is for a person to have in place durable power of attorney, health care authorization, things of that nature, and walk us through what everyone should have as a matter of course for their probate estate and planning.
Well, I think it's important. If you want to stay out of the court system, then I think you should have a durable power of attorney for health care and finances. That gives you the ability, while you're able to be able to say, okay, well, I want this person to make medical decisions for me, and I also want this person to make financial decisions for me. Or maybe you may have 2 kids, and you may have one child that's better at handling the financial part, but one child that's better at handling the medical part. So it gives you the opportunity to choose who you want to make, decisions regarding your health care and finances, because, and at any time you can revoke that, for whatever the reason may be. If you wait until you're incapacitated, sometimes you don't have. Sometimes if you're conscious, you have a choice, because you can say, no, I don't want this person, or no, I do want that person. But if you're not, then it limits your ability to be able to fully have the whole decision making about who's going to make your financial decisions and who's going to make your medical decisions.
So when you're talking about things that you need to have in place, I guess the first question is, should everybody have a will in place? And what is a will? And should everybody have a will in place?
The most important thing for me is it's definitely not a bad idea to have a last will and testament in place, but the most important thing for me is for you to go through your assets and for you to make certain that you have beneficiaries on your assets, bank accounts. And a lot of people say, well, I don't have a lot of money. It's just so much easier if there's a beneficiary on there and there's somebody that you trust, because that person can, should something happen to you, obviously, when something happens to you, that person can be able to access your account, be able to make certain that your final bills are paid, be able to hopefully, be able to bury you. And I also think it's important, especially in the African American community, that at least we have burial insurance, because it's a burden, a tremendous burden, and a lot of stress when you lose someone that you love, and you got to figure out how you have to bury that person, and you based on your own economics, you may not just have the money to do it. And so it's important, I think, that people have some level of a burial policy. And you can oftentimes when you have burial policies, those, when you go in and make the final arrangements, those proceeds are just turned over to whoever the funeral home of choice is.
Okay. So, is there a dollar amount you would say in terms of whether or not a person should have a will, or it's really more about how many kids you have? Kind of walk us through the process of understanding what the will should look like, especially if you have one child versus many children. Kind of explain that process to us.
It's not a dollar amount. I just think that you just really have to sit down and decide, okay, what do I have? Do I have a house? Is there a particular piece of jewelry that I want to give to somebody? And that you articulate that in the will. But this is more important. It's extremely important, more so than the will, is that if you don't have a lot of assets, that you at least position yourself to be able to have beneficiaries on those assets. And with and I want people to understand something. When you have a beneficiary, they can't access that should something happen to you. So
What do you mean by that?
when you leave, like if you have a bank account and you leave it with a beneficiary in a trust form, they can't access that account until you die. And then at that point, they can access that account and get whatever funds that they need. But I think it's important to speak with an attorney so you can just go through your assets and they can position you to tell you the best route that you should take. Because I would always recommend everybody have a last will and testament, but everybody doesn't need a trust. You just need to make certain that someone you trust knows where. If you have a safe deposit box, you should have someone in your life, hopefully you trust, that they at least know where the key to the box is, so they don't have to go and file a petition in probate court to have the box drilled, and that's just just an extra step. Or and keep a piece of paper where all some people are very private. They don't want anyone to know where their bank accounts are. That's fine, I get it, but at least someone should know where, should something happen to you, where you are able to, there should be some level of piece of paper or something that the person should be able to get access to at that time, so they'll know where your accounts are, where your insurance policies are. Because oftentimes someone may have an insurance policy or may have a bank account, but you don't know where it is.
So would you explain to us the difference between a will and a trust? I heard you mentioned that term. What is the actual legal distinction between those two documents? Because they are two separate documents. Or are they two separate documents?
They're entirely two separate documents. I mean, oftentimes you can have a trust, and you are your own trustee. So you have a trust while you're living. So you may have some of your assets in the trust. You may have a bank account in the trust. You may have your house in the trust. And that trust is typically revocable. So you are the first trustee of the trust. At any time, you can change your trustee. But the purpose of having if you have a trust, you need to make certain that your assets are titled in the name of the trust, and as well as you need to again, go through your assets and nominate somebody as your successor trustee of someone that you trust. Because should something happen, when you become incapacitated, then that person steps into your shoes. So you're your initial trustee, but that person becomes the successor trustee, which allows them to be able to assist with making certain that your affairs are handled.
So would it be fair to say that a will is technically effective only upon your death, whereas a trust can exist while you're alive and then can transfer assets at your death?
Exactly. And oftentimes when people have a trust, they have a will that's called a pour over will, and a pour over will allows for those assets that may not be titled in the name of the trust, for you to be able to transfer those assets over to the trust without much difficulty.
So when we come back from our break, we're going to spend a little time talking about how we can work to protect our senior citizens. What happens if, in fact, you don't have a guardian? How does the Wayne County Probate Court, if you're in Detroit, play into protecting your assets, what happens in that process. We need people to better understand that, because we see a lot of our seniors being taken advantage of, and we really need to deal with that. So when we come back from our break, we're going to talk about those issues, and hopefully if you want to call in, we have our call-in numbers. We'll give those to you we got a call-in numbers right now. Our studio is on top of it. So when we come back from our break, we're going to talk about some additional issues about trust, how we protect our seniors. So this is Anthony Adams of We Detroit, We Deserve Better. We'll be right back.
Watch Anthony Adams, We Detroit, We Deserve Better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We Detroit, We Deserve Better.
I'm Wayne County Treasurer Eric Sabri, encouraging all taxpayers to please take advantage of the several payment options available.
You can pay online by visiting the Wayne County Treasurer's Office website. Paying online is easy and convenient.
You can also download the mobile app and pay with your smartphone.
You can pay at one of 70 kiosks located throughout Wayne County.
And yes, you can always still send in your payments using the U.S. Postal Service.
If you have to visit our office in person, you must make an appointment by going to treasurer.waynecounty.com. It only takes a few minutes. Facial covering or mask is required and social distancing is observed. Your health and safety is very important to us. You can also email our office at taxinfo@waynecounty.com or call us at 313-224-5990.
If you need a car today, use credit, bruise credit, or in need of a financial miracle, my name is Mr. Green, the Financing King. Got a small down payment and proof of income? You can drive away today in a new or pre-owned car, truck, or SUV. Call me, Mr. Green, 313-350-4188. I have over 35 years of experience and an unlimited selection of reliable, certified vehicles. Call Mr. Green, the Financing King, 313-350-4188.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
Watch Anthony Adams, We Detroit, We Deserve Better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We Detroit, We Deserve Better.
My name is Anthony Adams of the We Detroit, We Deserve Better show, a program where I speak about topics of interest to me and topics of interest hopefully to you. Today, my very, very, very special guest is my law partner and my wife, Lynn Marine Adams, who is a distinguished probate attorney, having practiced for more than 29 years in the courts of this state. And so, Lynn, when we left, we were talking about how we protect our senior citizens. What is important, you think, for a senior citizen to have in place in order to protect themselves against senior abuse?
I would say the most important thing is probably the durable power of attorney for health care and the durable power of attorney for finances. It allows
those are two separate documents.
Two separate documents. Okay. It allows the senior to be able to choose who they want to handle their affairs and handle their medical affairs as well as their financial affairs. And if they don't have anyone in place, at least have someone. There's typically someone that you're able to reach out to say, should something happen to me, I become sick, this is what I want to occur. I don't want to be resuscitated. I do want to be resuscitated. I don't want to go on hospice. I do want to go on hospice. We have to be, it's important that we start these conversations, no one ever wants to talk about death.
Right.
It's not
Especially in the black community.
Yeah, especially in the black community. Although we know we're not going to always live forever, we always want to think that. So those are the things that are most important, because over the years we've seen a lot of elder abuse. And if you can just have someone that you can position to be able to make those decisions for you, because oftentimes if you don't, then Adult Protective Services, a social worker from the hospital, possibly a social worker from a senior building, will file a petition to have an independent person make medical decisions for you and or financial decisions.
So what happens when, for example, a person's in a senior building, they really don't have any relatives to speak of, they become somewhat incapacitated, they can't really make decisions for yourself. Would you explain what that petition process looks like? Are there public hearings? Can any person of interest intervene? It kind of explain that process for me.
Primarily, any person of interest can intervene, but they will go down and file a petition with the court, be it Oakland, Wayne, or Macomb County. For the cost to file a petition is $175, and at that point, typically they would ask for an independent person to be appointed to make those decisions. And there are some really good public guardians out there, and then there are some that are not as good. And oftentimes, too, you want people to make decisions about you that understand you. And when you go in and someone files a petition and requests an independent, you may not get someone who understands you culturally. I mean, we all know black people, we do things a lot differently at times. we
little different.
We're a little different. I mean, I am as well. We think differently we have somewhat of a lack of trust at times, and and it's been rightfully so. Let me just say that. But I think that we have to be cognizant of that. I remember one time I did a mediation, and one of the reasons why I was picked for the mediation is because, the individual was like, well, I need to understand some of these expenses. And I'm like, what? He was like, well, there seems to be a high amount spent on hair. And I busted out laughing. So I went and did the division. I was like, that's not a lot of money spent on hair. But, black women a lot of times get their hair done every week. Some other cultures don't get their hair done every week. They get their hair done when they need a haircut. They want to get color.
Okay.
So
let's talk about then different parts of a person's asset base. Say, for example, they own a home free and clear. How should they treat that? Should that house be put in the will? Should it be put in the trust? How should that be handled?
If a person owns a house free and clear, the first thing you have to ask yourself, if you have children or grandchildren, what do I want to happen to the house should something happen to me? And this is what I always tell people, oftentimes it's better off selling it. And unless you are have some mansion and you live on it's oftentimes better to sell it, because it just becomes there possibly just could be issues with title the longer you wait, and if you have children and they're married, and it just becomes more chaotic. And so if you have an asset free and clear, you at least want to do a ladybird deed.
A ladybird deed.
Or,
what is a ladybird deed?
That's a deed where you say, okay, I want Anthony Adams to have my house after I am gone. And that's, so you have this deed drawn up, deeding the house to Anthony Adams. You keep it in a safe place. You let Anthony know where where the deed is, but it's not filed until after the person's death. Or the house goes into a will. You have a will, and you say, okay, I have this piece of property, it's free and clear. you can say, I want to leave this property to this person, to these 2 or 3 people, or I want it sold. I always tell everyone to be very careful. Like if you have 5 kids, just it may be better off selling it as opposed to titling it in the name of all 5 kids, because when you do that, everybody is responsible for that piece of property. Everybody's supposed to pay the property taxes. Everybody's supposed to pay the upkeep of the property. And there's typically always somebody that just doesn't want to do it. I mean, just does not want to do it.
Pay their fair share.
Right. So you're better off just not even putting yourself in that situation. And I often tell parents, you know your children. You know your family.
What about a life insurance policy? Should that be put into your will or trust? How should that be treated?
Life insurance policy has, typically direct beneficiaries. That doesn't even go through the will. That doesn't even go through probate court. You can have all kind of assets in probate court, but if you have beneficiaries on a life insurance a life insurance policy, that does not even go through court. If you have, I'm a big proponent of life insurance. I'm a person that's probably overly insured, but you should probably, you want to make certain that you typically always review your policies at least once a year, because oftentimes, especially in marital relationships, you have someone who's beneficiary of the policy, but you don't know who's going to go first. And so you want to make certain that you review that policy, make certain, obviously that the person is living, and the person understands that they are the beneficiary of that policy. And oftentimes life insurance policies also people use as a mechanism for burial. So you have to make certain that the person you leave as a beneficiary of the policy is going to use some money to bury you.
So in a normal situation where a person has insurance and they die, is it expected that the policy be turned over to the to the burial, the funeral home, and allow them to get the money and then pay you the balance? How does that kind of work?
It's not an expectancy. It's what you direct the person that you're leaving as your beneficiary. You're saying, okay, hey Anthony, I left you as the beneficiary of this policy. This allows you to be able to use proceeds to bury me. You obviously you would bury me, and then whatever is left over, then typically what happens is whoever the company is, they'll cut the check to the insurance company, and they'll cut the rest of the check, over to you if there's anything left.
Okay. So if you own a house, it's very important to set up exactly kind of how you want that ownership to be, especially if you own it free and clear. Your experience has been that if in fact you have many children, it's probably best to go ahead and sell that house and leave specific instructions for that to occur, so no one is left. Now, what happens if, for example, one of the children want to buy the home? How would that work? How would they buy that house?
And there were other children.
Yes.
Okay. So what what that person would do is I recommend the easiest way to do it and the cleanest way is to get it appraised. And say, okay, the house is appraised for $50,000. There's 5 children. I want to buy everybody else out. So you make them, you deduct. So you say 50, obviously 50, so their portion would be $10,000 if the house sold for $50,000. So what you would do is you can make them an offer for like $40,000, and you just have to come up with the money to be able to pay them to pay them off.
Okay.
And another reason why sometimes I recommend just to backtrack getting the house sold, because unfortunately in situations some parents have children that passed before them, but they left children, and people and unless a person is explicitly left out the will, then that person's share goes to that person's children because they step into that person's shoes.
Okay, so if you have a brother and sister, and the brother dies before the sister, but the brother has children, when the mother passes, and whatever assets she has would go to the sister, and to the children of the brother as well.
They step into that person's shoes. Yeah.
Great. Okay. So listen, when we come back, we're going to dig a little deeper into this probate law, how we protect our assets, how you keep your families from fighting. We're going to talk about, we're going to have her share some of her experiences about siblings, relatives, people fighting about money. Because at the end of the day, it all boils down to money. Who's going to get what? And while we think the best of most people, in death, as we know, crazy things happen. And so this is Anthony Adams with my special guest, my law partner, my wife, Lynn Marie Adams. And we'll be back after the station break to talk a little bit more about how we keep ourselves from fighting. I call it Family Feud segment.
Watch Anthony Adams. We, Detroit. We deserve better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We, Detroit. We deserve better.
Hi, this is LaWanda.
This is R.J. Watkins.
Coming to you to bring you some information about the #1 detox in the nation, Lemon Burn. Lemon Burn helps to turn the fat into fit. It's for you, a happier, healthier you. Because you know healthy is the new beautiful. An all-natural way to improve your health. It promotes a healthy digestive system, attacks and reduces belly fat, as well as gives you energy. Need to get yours today. Call 313-868-6612.
Don't forget to exercise and eat right.
Your radio is now on TV. Your TV is now on radio. WHPR 88.1 FM can now be heard and seen worldwide. The same platform that hosts all of your favorite content now has WHPR TV and radio. Have your own radio or TV show on Roku with approximately 8 million homes starting as low as $50. Debut your music video, clothing line, church ministry, plays, or products. A limited number of slots are available, so act now. For more information, visit RokuDetroit.com or call 313-868-6612. You heard about it. Now come be a part of it. Roku Detroit Worldwide. Approximately 8 million viewers.
Hi, excuse me, do you have anything for paint?
Straight down that aisle
All
there.
right, thank you.
Young lady, this here's what you need.
Ringmaster?
Ringmaster rubbing oil.
How does it work?
By promoting circulation since 1950. Massage it in for best results.
Ringmaster took care of my back pain.
Ringmaster got rid of my knee pain, too.
Wow, it sounds like I'm late to the party. I'll take one.
Find Ringmaster at CVS, Davis Drugs, and other fine stores.
Watch Anthony Adams. We, Detroit. We deserve better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We, Detroit. We deserve better.
Welcome back to the Anthony Adams We Detroit, We Deserve Better show. And today I have my special guest, my best friend, my law partner, as well as my wife, attorney Lynn Marie Adams. And we've been talking about probate law. She is an expert in this area. And so, Lynn, let's talk about now, I call it the Family Feud segment before I left. What happens when instructions are not clear and children get into a big dispute? Kind of give us some anecdotal stories about some situations you've been involved in. Why does a parent need to leave clear instructions for their children?
Because you know your children. You know your children. You know your children. I mean, you know your children. And there are so many stories. There's no specific reason why people fight. They just do. A lot of times, a lot of it stems from their childhood. They're mad about this happened. They're mad about that happened. It could be a countless number of reasons why people fight. And I mean, I'm been involved in cases where I'm like, look, the only people that are making money are all the attorneys. And No one else is really, there's not going to be nothing left for you to get if you guys keep fighting about this. I think it's just important for people to just, your children, and you have to, you understand who's responsible, who's not responsible. You understand who's better at this, who's, better. Personally, I'm fortunate. I get along well with my brother. I mean, we fight all the time. It's you know that.
Yeah,
So,
her brother is the smartest man in the world. I want
smartest
to
man
let
in
you
the
know
world.
that.
Smartest man in the
And
world.
he's not ashamed to let you know
Oh,
that as
he
well.
is. Yeah, he'll tell you that. But there's a core that we actually get along really, really, really well. And he gets cussed out almost every time he comes to the house because he's got something smart to say. But I can pretty much guarantee you, and I think you know that we would never fight if anything should happen to our mother. My mother's very specific about how she wants her assets, divided. And I am very, very, very comfortable with that. She wants her granddaughter to have certain things. She wants my sister-in-law to have certain things. My mother has fur coats, and she wants them to have her fur coats. And I'm perfectly fine with that. As you know, I have enough, and so so I don't need another one.
Right.
And it's about communicating that with your children often, while you're living, and
Right.
just trying to minimize those arguments as much as possible.
Right.
And that's why it's important to have, a document in place, in particular if you know that your children are going to fight.
Right.
You have it in place, because if the document is written the way it should be written, it's hard for them to, even if they want to fight about it, there's nothing they can really do about it.
And I think you talk about, you make a really good point about the expense of an actual contest of a will, or contest of a trust, kind of how expensive that can be, and who really get paid. Because in order to make your case, you obviously have to present your facts to the judge. How expensive can these contests become?
Oh, they can become really expensive. I mean, it could be thousands of dollars. And let's be clear, people just don't fight over wills. Typically trusts are not even part of probate court.
Okay, all
unless
right.
you need some level of clarity on something, or you need, or you're requesting for whatever reason for it to be supervised.
Okay.
But people fight over guardianships and conservatorships. Who's going to serve in this role? Who you may accuse someone of stealing someone's assets, and sometimes it might be true, sometimes it may not be true. Oftentimes I've had situations where you have one person serving as the guardian or conservator, but they don't live there. You have another child that lives with their parent, and it becomes some big dispute of who's doing more, and why is that person getting an allowance to take care of our mother or father when I'm the person that lives there and I'm the person that does all the work. So it's just countless reasons why people fight, which is why there is a probate court, which is in the Constitution.
Right.
The Constitution specifically states there is a probate court. So it could be just several reasons why. But the way to avoid it is to, as much as you can. And let me just say this: you're not going to be able to avoid fights. Oftentimes, so some people just want to fight. They don't have anything else to do. They just want to. They just want to. It's the principle of it to them.
Yeah.
Some people don't even care that they end up, that they don't get anything. But what you want to do as much as possible is to be able to have your documents tight and your documents well written, so it's very specific of how you want things to go. And then at that point, it's really up to the judge to be able to stop that.
And I think it's also very important to understand the feelings of your children, because your will and testament is kind of your last statement of fact about how you want things to be handled. And anecdotally, we were talking about the fact that my parents divorced when I was very young, and I got an envelope in the mail from an attorney because he lived in Ohio with his last will and testament, and I was a little upset about it because in his last will and testament, he didn't include me in the last will and testament. Well, that was kind of like, to me, it was like the final straw of you telling me that I really wasn't worthy. And I think you really need to keep these kind of things in mind because they're very important. Oftentimes, the fight, as you said, is not even about what's presented. It's about feelings that people have and unresolved issues within their own family life that they need to address. And so you gotta you should take that into consideration because that is your final statement of kind of how you feel about everything.
And you want to resolve those issues. Like I always tease my mother that my brother is her favorite child.
And she gets very pissed off about that, by the way.
I'm like, I know he's your favorite child.
Right.
And he's not. But, you know, when you get a little older, you realize that, you know, he was able to do, he's 3 years older than me. And so he's 57. And so, but when you're 10 or 13, you can't, or you're 16, you can't understand why he was able to stay out until 1 o'clock and you had to be home by 11.
13 years old.
No. When I was 16,
okay, all right,
you know,
all right. Well, you better not be.
No. And so you, but as you know, as I gotten older and you become more mature, you realize that your mother or your father they make decisions because you're a girl, he's a boy. I mean, it's just a different factors of you know why. It's an old saying, you know, mothers baby their boys and raise their daughters. I mean, you know, oftentimes you're looking at your daughter, you're like, oh Lord, she's too much like me, let me try to get her into it right. So I mean, but you have to, it's up to you to do the work as an adult. And I just find that oftentimes people just are not willing to do the work and don't want to do the work, which ends up resulting in a lot of these, you know, issues that end up coming out when parents die, you know, all kind of fights happen. And it's like, really? I mean, we're trying to bury somebody.
Yeah.
You know?
And we also have to recognize that the event of a death, especially a death of a mother or a father, is a very traumatic situation. And it's something that, again, when you're thinking ahead and when you're thinking about these issues and you're discussing them with your children, it's just very important to walk through the steps that people have to go through when they're dealing with their grief. People deal with grief very, very differently. And I think we just need for people to understand that in order to make that transition period from when they passed much easier, that is so important, for example, to maybe designate who your funeral home should be. So there's an issue with that. And I know your family uses Coles. You know, I use Swanson. So we have different, you know, viewpoint there. Who should be responsible? Where you want to be buried? How do you want to be buried? You know, some people don't necessarily want an elaborate funeral. They may want to be cremated. And so spelling out those instructions ahead of time kind of takes the decisions away from the child, puts it in the hands of the parent to determine exactly how they want their situation to move forward. And I think, do you think that's important or that's not important?
Oh, I think that's extremely important. I think it's extremely important. And, you know, like you said, you know, typically most families, like you said, you know, you use Swanson's, we use Coles. One is not better than the other. It's just that, you know, it's who your family typically, you know, will use. But I think that's extremely important to try to avoid, you know, these issues. But you're not going to be able to avoid them all, but at least you want to try to do is minimize them as much as possible.
Okay. So when we come back from our break, we're going to kind of walk through a checklist of things that everyone should have in place. What do you really need in order to put yourself in the right financial position, a spiritual position, a burial position? What do you need to do in order to have these things in place so when at the point of your decease, there is as smooth a transition as possible? Recognizing the difficulties of life and that it's very hard to resolve all disputes. And so I'm Anthony Adams of the We Detroit, We Deserve Better show, and we're talking about probate law today with my wife, with my best friend and my law partner, Lynn Marie Adams, attorney Lynn Marie Adams. We'll be right back.
Watch Anthony Adams, We Detroit, We Deserve Better, live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We Detroit. We deserve better.
Finally, I just got my COVID-19 vaccine.
I registered with my local health department and they called me.
I got mine at the pharmacy, and my neighbor got hers from the hospital.
I'm not a techie person, so I called the COVID hotline, and they helped me schedule an appointment.
Get vaccinated with the first vaccine you can. Protect us all.
Learn more at michigan.gov/COVID vaccine.
If you or someone you know is facing eviction and has a notice to quit or a court order summons, complaint, or judgment, there is help to avoid eviction. Call the Detroit Eviction Helpline at 866-313-2520 or visit DetroitEvictionHelp.com. The City of Detroit with the State of Michigan have eviction prevention programs to assist Detroit residents with financial assistance and legal representation. Again, Detroiters can call 866-313-2520 or visit www.DetroitEvictionHelp.com. That's 866-313-2520 or go online to DetroitEvictionHelp.com. Again, Detroiters can call 866-313-2520 or visit www.DetroitEvictionHelp.com. 866-313-2520. Get help today.
We at Watkins Broadcasting care about the health and safety of our viewers and listeners. During this novel coronavirus pandemic, please protect yourself and others. Wash your hands well and often. Avoid touching your face. Cough and sneeze into your sleeve. Practice social distancing. Stay at least 6 feet away from others when in public and only leave the house when it's essential. Stay safe. You are important to us.
Watch Anthony Adams. We, Detroit. We deserve better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We, Detroit. We deserve better.
Welcome back. This is Anthony Adams of the We Detroit, We Deserve Better show. And today we're talking about probate law, how to put your affairs in order with a distinguished attorney in probate law, as well as my wife and best friend, attorney Lynn Marine Adams. And so before we went on break, Lynn, we were talking about, let's just go through the checklist of everything that a person should really have. And you don't need to have a lot of money, but things you just need to do as a matter of course in order to protect yourself, protect your assets, protect your family, and really protect your children from getting in the argument. So I'm going to first start with the will. Is a will necessary? Is a will required? And this is going to be a rapid succession question and answer period.
A will is not necessary or required, but it's always good to have, because even if you have beneficiaries on bank accounts or you have like a ladybird deed if you have a house, it's just good to have just in case there's something that you miss. You know, you may have ended up inheriting some funds and became incapacitated yourself and never got around to leaving that beneficiary on that account that you open. So I think it's good to good to have.
A trust.
You know, you don't necessarily need a trust. A trust, and I will say this: a trust oftentimes is really good if it's a second marriage, because you have, especially if you have, different set of children, and so it allows each the couple to decide how they want their assets divided should something happen. So I definitely recommend a trust if it's a second marriage and both individuals have children or grandchildren, or just you may have a niece or a nephew you want to leave something to. But definitely being very specific about how you want your assets, divided to avoid any sort of fight.
Durable power of attorney.
For healthcare and finance, that is important, because at some point, you may or may not become incapacitated. Everybody doesn't like dad just died. My father, my grandmother, she just died. Whereas, but your mother was sick for a while.
Right.
And so, so I think that's definitely important to have. You may never even have to use it, because, you may just, you may not have a long illness, but it's important to have.
What happens in a situation where a person that, for example, is in a nursing home and they have assets, and those assets run out? How is that person cared for? How does Medicare, Medicaid all interact with that type of situation?
It's Medicaid, so you have to have below $2,000 in liquid assets to be able to qualify for Medicaid, and all your insurance policies have to be irrevocable.
Which
And
means?
that you can't you can't cash them in, you can't revoke them. So and people get a little upset about that, but because a lot of insurance policies are written where they're revocable, you can make changes to them, you could do X, Y, and Z, but when they become irrevocable, they're irrevocable. You can't do it. You can't change your.
So the insurance policy, if I have, for example, I mean, it's hypothetically, I have a $100,000 insurance policy upon my death. And my children are designated beneficiaries of that policy. If I get sick and I get put in a nursing home, you're telling me I can't then revoke that, and I can't do anything with that policy?
You have to switch it to an irrevocable policy, because what the state of Michigan...
That makes it what? That makes it payable to who?
It doesn't necessarily change who it's payable to, but what the state of Michigan is making certain that no one's able to cash that policy in and get the cash.
Okay.
That's what they want to make certain to qualify. You cannot be able to cash that policy in and get the cash.
So if you have assets, if you have a retirement income and things of that nature, you're required to spend that money towards your care?
If you get to the point where you have below $2,000, what happens is if you have received Social Security and you receive a pension, so let's just say your Social Security is $1,000, your pension is $1,500. So $2,440 of that would be paid to the nursing home.
Okay.
And $60 comes to you. Now it may have changed because it's been a minute since I looked up the specifics on that. But $60 goes to you for your allowance for your personal needs, and then Medicaid pays for the rest. So one of the things that I want people to, especially younger people, to really consider is long-term care insurance, as I call it, nursing home insurance. But it's long-term care insurance. And what long-term care insurance does is it allows you to be able, it's an insurance policy, and it allows for you to be, you pay on it, and you may or may not use it. It's just like, you may drive your car all the time and never get into an accident and never have to make a claim. But it allows you to be able to stay in your homes. It gives you the ability to be able to shop around should you need nursing home care or assisted living care, where you're going to go. It makes it more, it gives you the ability to have more choices. Okay. And the younger you are, and the reason why I say specifically with younger people, the younger you are, the less expensive it typically is, because you're in better health. It becomes a little bit more tricky when you're trying to get something in your 50s, and you may have been diagnosed with having high blood pressure, you may have had diabetes or something of that nature. So I always recommend that. So
then that's a very, very good point, because now what we're talking about is how you actually can plan your own estate, how you protect yourself against unforeseen disasters. And so a long-term health care policy really provides supplemental insurance, if you will, in order to pay the cost of your long-term care.
Yeah, and what they do typically is they do this chart and say, okay, should this person become sick, this is their life expectancy. So you're paying on it for like 10 years, because the average stay in a nursing home for a person is, I haven't looked it up lately and I should, but let's just say it's like 5 years. And, but we have to be able to tell people where our assets are. You don't have to be specific with people. You don't have to say, okay, I got $1 million in this account, $5 in this account, or I have $200,000 in this account, but they at least need to know where the accounts are. They can't get access to them, but they at least need to know, because it makes things a lot smoother.
Now, what about a supplemental health insurance, long-term health insurance? Does that type of product exist for someone to buy supplemental insurance to care for them when they reach a certain age?
You talking about if the person qualifies for Medicare?
Right, if they don't. This I'm saying, there's a person who's not qualified for Medicare, but they have the long-term care policy in place, which pays for their nursing home, and they want to cover their health expenses. Does that type of product exist?
You can always buy a supplemental health insurance policy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You can always buy one.
So this is what she's saying. There's a checklist of things that people need to have in place. You know, you need to determine whether or not you in fact need a will. You need to have clear title on your bank accounts and your insurance policies. If you own assets free and clear, you need to talk about how you want to handle those things. Whether what you call a ladybird deed, if you own a house free and clear, which allows you to avoid probate, because if there is no one named as a beneficiary or on a deed, then that property has to go through probate court, does it not? Or does it?
If there's no person, yeah, that's correct. It does have to go through probate court. Now, one other thing I want people to take into consideration too is that if you have property that has there's a mortgage, and I get this question a lot. The mortgage company is the secured interest. The mortgage company, they're gonna give their money, and so you can't just deed the property to you, because it doesn't work that way with the mortgage company. And sometimes many times I've had situations where there's a mortgage and there's a child that wants the house. You have to literally qualify for the mortgage, because you have to be able to pay the mortgage company off. And I always tell people to really just keep that in mind. Mortgage company has the secured their secured interest.
Have you ever seen a situation where a person has died and for example, a child continues to live in the house and pays the mortgage?
All the time.
And what happens in that situation?
Technically, the mortgage company, if they wanted to, they could foreclose on it because the person is deceased. But as long as they're getting paid, a lot of times they leave it alone. The issue comes into play is with insurance, because when the homeowner dies, it should be really the property insurance policy should be turned into like a rental insurance policy, which is a lot more expensive because the homeowner is no longer there. And so that's where it gets to be a little tricky.
Great. Well, first of all, I want to thank distinguished attorney Lynn Marine Adams, my law partner, my wife, my best friend.
You must want dinner tonight. You keep saying all these.
for participating in our program today. Making sure that your financial affairs are in order is extremely important. We have to talk about death. We have to talk about how we plan for our own demise, which means you're looking past yourself and trying to figure out the best way to minimize dispute and grief during your death. And so this is Anthony Adams of the We Detroit, We Deserve Better show. We'll be back next week where we will talk about other things of interest to you and hopefully of interest to me as well. So thank you very much. We've enjoyed our program.
Watch Anthony Adams, We Detroit, We Deserve Better. Live on Mondays from 11 a.m. to noon on WHPR TV 33 Detroit. And live stream on Facebook. We Detroit. We deserve better.